Right, over the last few days there have been plenty of people speculating on if Liverpool are title challengers. What does being a title challenger actually mean? It's similar to being a space ranger if you're interested. Basically, it means you hang out at the very top. You're one of those guys who's in the conversation with Man City and Arsenal. Arsenal fans, I don't want to leave you out. But also, I don't want to give you false hope over these last few years. Let's talk about the Premier League table, the way it's shaping up, right? Because if you look at this Premier League table, and believe me, I have, all the way down to 9 could be considered top 4 contenders, right? There's Brighton in there, there's Spurs in there, there's Newcastle in there. Fulham, slightly an aberration, but you could say that every season has one of those. Aston Villa, very much so one of those guys who could finish in the top 4. Chelsea, people overlook them because they had a new manager, but just look at the squad. Arsenal, sure. Man City, sure. Liverpool, sure. But there is clearly a strata between a couple of these different teams. And I would say that there is a top 3 in there. City, Arsenal, Liverpool. And it feels still very much in that order. But that's just where it feels now. We're 6 games into the Premier League season. By the time that we reach, this next international break, we're going to be 7 games into the Premier League season. We're not even at a point where we can even begin to judge the long-term quality of these sides. Excuse me, I've got a cough. And even then, I would say there are a lot of people who are going well ahead of themselves. This was 6 games in just last season. Man City top, Liverpool second. Arsenal were 5th at that point. Position doesn't really mean anything. Go back another season. Arsenal were top at that point. City were second. Tottenham were 3rd. Brighton were 4th. Why Brighton was mixing it up in here? I don't get it. Next one. Liverpool were top the season before that. City, you get the point I'm making here. I actually think it's kind of entertaining to go back to 2021 just because Everton were top that season. 13 points, level with Liverpool. There was like this whole, the Scousers are going to rule things for the next couple of years. Well, the Scousers were, it just wasn't the blue side. The point is, right, we go one more season back. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we won it that year. Anyway, there are lots of different factors that play into whether Liverpool will or won't be Champions League and title challengers this season. In fact, I would actually make an argument that there is more of a Champions League team in here than there is a Premier League winning team. But the problem with both of those is that so far this season we've seen a very consistent starting lineup. Apart from Jarell Quansah, that's pretty much the starting lineup that we've seen in almost all the Premier League games. Obviously the League Cup is an aberration in that, and the Champions League we slightly changed things up, probably just as a reaction to the way that AC Milan were going to play, right? The point is, we won't be able to consistently start this team over a season. We won't be consistently be able to have Mo Salah in there. We won't be able to consistently have Diogo Jota in there. There are, I'd argue, injury history of Jota. You could argue Gravenberch wasn't available for a lot of last season. You could say Ibrahima Konate. You could say Andy Robertson at this point, and you could also say Alisson in there. So there is a spine of a side there, especially if you look at the influence those players have on the team, that isn't going to be consistently available. And you'd argue has been consistently available for Arne Slot. Now, the other argument to that is every season there are going to be injuries. Rodri's injured for City this season. Arsenal were missing a couple of players. Thomas Partey last season. There are going to be players who are going to be in and out of the squad. And what you have to do is maximise your resource within that time. Liverpool have very few injuries right now. Fair enough. But there are other sides such as City and Arsenal who are currently going through a bit of an injury crisis. John Stones will probably step up for City, which seems like a cover-all. And Arsenal, I think they're still finding their shape. We're wondering whether Declan Rice is a 6, maybe he's an 8. At the moment, it's just that Liverpool have found a system which seems to match up quite well with the zeitgeist of football right now. Fair enough, right? And I was doing the Bologna preview. I'll talk about that in a second. The point is, Liverpool have a squad which I think is very capable of competing for top 4. Is it quite deep enough to compete for the actual top spot? Is Nunez a good enough in and out for Diogo Jota? Is Chiesa a backup for Salah? Is he a backup for Szoboszlai? Is Curtis Jones the backup for Szoboszlai? I think Cody Gakpo has already shown he is that guy who can back up Diaz, and maybe even better than Diaz, be a variation on Diaz, which is definitely something that you need in the Premier League. But I think even wider than that, right? Say we get to January. I think City are going to sign another central midfielder, not only because of Rodri's injury, but also because I think in the long run they were looking up for not only backup for Rodri, but also wondering where Rodri was going to go in the long run. I think Arsenal will probably have a much better form and shape in their side by that point. I can understand that. I think that's pretty reasonable to say. There's a lot of people at the moment kind of using the Mourinho criticism of what Arsenal are doing at the moment, where it's like, oh, Mourinho's name is linked to negative football and Pep's name is linked to positive football. You're more like Mourinho. Well, guess what? If Mourinho can win a title through Mourinhoing his way to the title, then why can't Arsenal? Why is it that I think Mikel Arteta, in many ways, when he first came in at Arsenal, was being compared much more to Mourinho than he was to Pep? It's quite easy to make these kind of wild conclusions in the first place because, hey, people play wingers, people play central midfielders, people play centre-backs and goalkeepers. Roles are like, really it's the minutiae of the game. It's the actual individual skill of that player, their application, the very nuanced notes that the coaches give them that make the difference. And that is where it comes back to Arne Slot and Liverpool. It's what Arne Slot is able to do. If Klopp was manager of this side, I'll be honest, I actually probably would have said, I'm not sure this side are capable of winning the Premier League. Mainly because we've already seen them have a run at it last year with almost exactly the same team. I'm not sure we would even be playing Ryan Gravenberch this. Maybe we'd be playing him more. Maybe we'd be playing him in a different position. Maybe we would have signed a 1-6 over the summer. I think we probably would have moved Endo on. There are many different iterations of what we would have done in another timeline. But now what we're seeing, and I think what we underestimated about Liverpool in the pre-season, was the way that he would change players' roles to get the best out of them. And arguably, you could say Liverpool's extremely good. Let's just go to Premier League table up here. Defensive record, which is it's the best in the Premier League, but it is 3 times better than City. It is 2.5 times better than Arsenal. It is 3.5 times better than Chelsea. Is that how defence works? I don't know. The goal difference for Liverpool is also the best goal difference in the league. Weirdly, I wouldn't have expected that, although maybe I would have expected that. I just wouldn't have expected that from a defensive position. And I think at the moment, Liverpool are in a position where they've improved a number of players or changed a number of players' roles in there that makes a big difference to how they're playing. There is an argument, if we go into my Bologna preview, of one thing that I want to highlight here. This has been Liverpool's run so far. I'm going to have to zoom in on this, right? Las Palmas, Ipswich, Brentford, Manchester United, Forest, AC Milan, Bournemouth, West Ham, Wolves. At all those sides, I can't pick one team, and I genuinely mean one team, that's going to finish in the top 4 of the Premier League this season. Arguably, AC Milan have got a very big hindrance there. But I would say even AC Milan were 1, maybe 2 tiers below where Liverpool are capable of playing right now. The point is, just because AC Milan are 2 tiers lower doesn't mean that Liverpool is still the top tier. I would say AC Milan are 3 or 4 tiers off where Man City are right now in terms of overall play, in terms of squad cohesion, those kind of things. Now, fair enough, right? What do you think of that? Do you agree? I mean, arguably the biggest challenge that Liverpool have faced so far is Forest. Possibly the West Ham game, where West Ham were unlucky not to go ahead. Bournemouth, I think, put a good account of themselves. I don't think Wolves overly challenged Liverpool. I don't think anyone really thinks that. I genuinely think Manchester United were just playing in first phases of play. Ipswich, I mean, sure. But that was the first day of the season away from home. I don't think we should take the away crowd's opinion on any of those things relatively seriously. Point is, I'm not even saying like we will have to wait and see. I think this Liverpool team are going to make signings in January. I think we are going to see probably someone along the lines of Zubimendi coming in. I think we'll probably see possibly even 2 signings in January, possibly 1 more defensive player, possibly, depending on where contracts go. But I think we will know by January where Liverpool are really at. And that is because of this run. Now, I've already highlighted this on this channel multiple times. And I think a lot of other people are hyping up Liverpool quite deliberately because they know that the higher that you build them, the further the fall will be and the better the YouTube clicks will be. Do not listen to those people. At most, if you're a Liverpool fan. At best, if you're not a Liverpool fan, it's up to you. Whatever drugs you mess around with in your own time, just don't do it on school premises. The point is, Liverpool-Chelsea, that's at home. Leipzig, Arsenal, Brighton, we played them back-to-back within a couple of days. Leverkusen, that's a challenging game. Villa, Southampton, you never know what they're going to do. Real Madrid, Man City. Real Madrid and Man City come within 4 days of each other. Arguably, we should have made November 31 days. It's a scheduling problem, and I think it's something that the Romans messed up. Romans? Jamie, Romans? Romans. Maybe Greeks. August is a little short, I'm just saying. I think it's got 31 days. There should be a 32-day month. Am I wrong?
In November.
In November. November feels like a 32-day month. Does it not?
For Liverpool's sake.
I like November. It's a build-up to the birthday. Anyway, the point is, scheduling-wise, if you're looking at this run, this is the death row of runs. You've got all the big title contenders in there. You've got arguably other Champions League contenders in there. Leverkusen, I get it. Real Madrid, I get it. They've beaten sides so far, but I think a lot of those sides have been tactically good matchups for Liverpool, essentially kind of feeling like pre-seasons in the way that we've played them, but also those sides aren't up to full speed yet, so it's about the order in which you play people, right? The order in which you play people is incredibly important in a season. Say Liverpool have Real Madrid now in the Champions League, I would almost feel better about playing Real Madrid now than I would about playing Real Madrid at the end of November, the 27th of the 11th. Mainly because Jude Bellingham had just returned. Say we played them this match day. Jude Bellingham has just returned. They've had a horrible, and I mean horrible, weekend against Atletico Madrid. You know, there's just timing issues in there. There's mentality issues in there. There's Ancelotti issues in there of just trying to find that right shape within the midfield. Maybe we'll be able to compete with them at this point. The Brighton thing, I also think Brighton are an incredibly difficult team to play right now. I don't need to go through these sides and break down why they're difficult to play. Maresca's making Chelsea good. I think a lot of people are still going off narrative with Chelsea. They're going off narrative with Liverpool. Their pre-season preconceptions, all these weird ideas they have around them. What I'm saying is, looking at a table up here, at least until match day 8, where can I go down to there? That's going to be roughly here. Right, so until the second Brighton, arguably after the Leverkusen game, we'll know where Liverpool are at. That's almost exactly a month away. Fair enough. A month from now, I think we know whether Liverpool are title contenders and Champions League contenders, mainly because they'll play in the Champions League and the Premier League a little bit more, but also because we'll know how deep the squad is. If Jones is coming in for, like for instance, hey, let's come over here. This was the Champions League starting 11 I put out there. Whether Endo can be an understudy to McAllister. Whether Chiesa and Jones can play that runner/10. And actually, they don't even need to really play that runner/10. They'll really just play more like a 4-2-4, even in possession, which is the difference. Liverpool out of possession, the 4-2-4. In possession, they play the 4-2-3-1. And even then, it's like, what are we going to do by January with someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold? Like, are we going to know he's off to Real Madrid? Are we going to know where he's going for Liverpool? What's going on there? And then I think we'll also know what the deal with people like Robertson is. We've got a great defensive record. I think it's more than reasonable to say, hey, like, you know, put our name in this pot. Like that seems very reasonable to me. What I think is unreasonable is to just go, oh, they are out and out title contenders. My main reasoning for that is, actually, if you look at other teams right now, like City, like Arsenal, those guys in more recent years have a better way of managing the fitness of their players, right? Arguably, Arsenal have suffered almost exclusively with that, and that could be exclusive reason why they haven't won the Premier League yet. We don't know how Liverpool are going to manage fitness. We don't know how Liverpool are going to manage this squad, whether Arne Slot's teams fall away towards the end of the season, whether if Ibrahima Konate isn't in the side, or Virgil van Dijk isn't in the side, we can cope with that. If that's a Gomez, if that's a Kwanzaa, if that's Ibrahima Konate, whoever it is who would have to come in for Van Dijk, and the other way around, whether Liverpool can just keep these guys fit. There is a lot of intensity. Like we saw from the opening 3 weeks of the season, we're now almost double that. Dominic Szoboszlai run the most in the Premier League in any of those games. Multiple players have made, you know, the highest number of whatevers it was they needed to in their current position. Those things are great to show intensity and effort, but intensity and effort are things that wear away over time. Over 6 games early on in a season, sure. But over 38 games later on in a season, those things show up not only in charts, but literally out in the field in terms of mental exhaustion, in terms of all these things. Of course, and I think other people have made this in their video, there is always an outside shout. But look at the Premier League table now. Do you want to make outside shouts for Chelsea being more consistent? Do you want to make that for Villa? They're only 2 points off Liverpool at the very top of the table, and it's not as if there was only one other season where I think someone had a perfect start. I think it was City. Yeah, look, City last season. That was last season, right? Yeah. 18 points, 6 games in. Goal difference was 13. They'd only conceded 3. I think that's where the comparison is actually quite favourable for Liverpool. It's this line in goals conceded or goals against. My only thing would be, Again, I'll go back to the fixtures because I think it makes sense in this Bologna preview. Name one good striker who is in form for any of these teams. Do you want to go to Brentford where Ivan Toney was ripping it up at the time? Because he wasn't. Do you want to go to United where... I'll get one in a minute. No. Like, Forest were arguably the most dangerous side we played outside of AC Milan. I'll give AC Milan their respect. What was it going to be? Was it going to be Mikel Antonio with a surprise Zorro-like performance that was going to take us out? Bournemouth, who've literally just lacked a striker? Or Wolves? Like, no disrespect to those guys, but we've not really played... We've played one good striker so far this season. And I get your point here. Arguably, Liverpool did shut AC Milan down outside of a Simicast brain fart, and that's it. And arguably the same with Wolves. Like, you know, if Liverpool hadn't gone, no, please, it's yours. No, please, you take the ball. Then Wolves wouldn't have scored either, and we'd be one goal conceded all season. I do love that, by the way. For the people who don't watch the game and then cover football, at least try watching the goals that we concede. Just, if you're going to cover the team, watch them when they play. It's just a tip. You're getting a pro tip for free. Just watch the games. Instead of saying things, and I love this piece of analysis by another video I watched, it was Ibrahima Konate's fault, and maybe they'll be able to iron those things out. They'll iron out people being polite to each other on the field, apparently. Anyway, I'm not saying don't hype this team up. What I'm saying is, we're currently under the radar, whatever it is you want to call us, title contenders. Feyenoord came in and surprised a lot of people in Eredivisie with Arne Slot. Maybe there is this form of momentum that we can build. Maybe. But let's just not get sucked into this conversation too early. Because I get the feeling that very often what they want you to do is nail those colours on as, you said you were title contenders a couple of weeks ago. Suddenly here we are, thrashing around in the Europa League positions. God, what's it like to be a Manchester United fan? It's a joke. Chill out. Not many Manchester United fans watching at this point anyway. 17 minutes in. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate you guys as always. Stick around on the channel. There'll be a preview out later today. Be covering the Bologna-Liverpool game live tomorrow, if that's what you want. And yeah, let's chill out. Oh, there is a Patreon down there. There'll be membership on this channel very soon. And there is also a Discord. See you guys in there. Much love. Bye.